So today I have decided to talk about how I managed my anxiety, which kind of developed into severe anxiety, which was a very scary experience, to feel like you're out of control of what you're feeling and afraid of, and so I kind of wanted to make a video about it and share what worked for me, because I just remember when I was in that place, being desperate for answers, and just something that would help, because I felt so helpless within my own body and mind. So this is my first video that I've made in a while, first one on this channel, a while on other channels, but so just forgive me if I'm a little awkward. I'm not used to talking to a camera, and I'm already awkward in general, so it's gonna just be amplified for a while if you can understand that. So, but I genuinely care about this topic. It's important to me, and it's important to me to be able to help even just one person out there who's struggling with the same thing. So without further ado, so I'm going to go ahead and talk about kind of the background and events that led up to me experiencing severe anxiety, because I think it gives insight into how sometimes that can develop for people. I took a lot of psychology classes, including abnormal psychology, in college, and I found some really useful definitions in there, because sometimes it helps to have a definition that you can work from. It was really scary for me to not know what I was experiencing or the specifics of it, because I didn't know how to tackle it and look for treatment options. I'm going to talk about the things I tried, which were a lot of different things. I'm going to talk about what worked for me. And then in the description box below, I'm going to leave link to a couple of the things I talk about, timestamps in case you want to skip around, and some anxiety support group links that I think are super helpful. Also, just a disclaimer, I'm not a health professional, I'm not a medical professional. It's not legal for me to give medical advice, so everything I talk about in this video is just my experience, and not medical advice, okay? Don't come for me, please. So, okay. Background events that led up to me experiencing this. So, I'm not going to go into great detail about this. Maybe in the future I'll make some videos, but I experienced a very abusive childhood, traumatic childhood, where as a small child, there are certain figures in your life that are supposed to care for you, and when they are not caring for you and they're actually hurting you, it can become confusing, because you look to these people for guidance, for safety, for care, and instead you're receiving the opposite, or sometimes a mix of both, and it becomes confusing. So I had some issues as a child with OCD, which is a form of anxiety. You get anxious about whatever it is, and then you have a compulsion that when you do it, relieves the anxiety. So I had a little bit of that as a child, but nothing that carried on to adulthood. I experienced a lot of bullying, which really affected my self-esteem, especially in relation to my appearance, and not just bullying in school, but also bullying from the people that were supposed to do otherwise. So it really, really affected my self-esteem, my mental image of myself, and how, other people viewed me and things like that. So growing up through high school, experiencing the bullying, being very self-conscious, I did have social anxiety disorder. I still have it, but it's gotten better. Like I said, this video is about how I managed my severe anxiety. I don't think saying I cured my anxiety is a very accurate thing to say, because I think everyone kind of gets relapses, because I mean, there's a lot of different triggers, and I have not cured my anxiety, but it is no longer severe. I've managed it. And so that's kind of what the point of this video is. But, so yeah, social anxiety, I didn't know, I was so afraid of what people thought of me. I remember in 6th grade, I wouldn't even change the color of my braces like you could do. Like, you know, you could always have fun colors. I wouldn't do that because I was afraid of what someone would think, that I had different colored braces or something. So just very self-conscious, to where I look back now and I'm like, wow, why did I feel that way? But, and it might seem silly, but that's just was the reality of it. So when I graduated high school, I immediately went to college, which I regret. I wish I would have given it more thought and time, but I didn't. And my first year of college, my dad, who lived in a different state, but I was close with him, got sick, and we thought it was just, you know, a small infection. He got antibiotics in the hospital, they sent him home, but he ended up getting a stroke, which led to multiple strokes, and we flew down there, but it wasn't looking good, and I'm not going to go into the details of what I experienced because it was incredibly traumatic, the whole experience, and I will make a video on it because it's maddening to me how our medical system works, and how they treat people in some instances. But I witnessed him die, and it wasn't peaceful, and watching that really, really traumatized me, and I do believe, after working with my therapist, that I had some PTSD from that. I flew home after that, and around the same time, my grandmother, who raised me, she found a lump on her neck, and turned out to be cancerous, even though it was misdiagnosed as being otherwise. And my mother at the time also, we didn't know where she was, put it that way. She has a lot of issues. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But so it was just a very, very traumatic time. The next 2 years I got into an abusive relationship, which I will make a video on because I feel like being in that situation, having support, being with or hearing from someone who went through that and seeing the signs and seeing the similarities would have really helped me. So I will make a video on that, but at the same time as that, my grandmother was basically dying because the form of cancer was incredibly rare. There's only ever been, I think, under 40 cases ever. So, and she was the person that kind of raised me and rescued me when I was in trouble, when being hurt by people that were supposed to take care of me. So she was kind of like my hero, and I'm gonna cry. But, and at the same time trying to help my mother, who was in and out of psychotic breaks. So it was incredibly stressful time, among other things. So after my grandma passed away is when I really noticed my anxiety increase. Go into definitions now. Social anxiety disorder I won't define because I think a lot of people know what that is, but if you don't, just do a quick Google search. You could probably find out a lot about it. Illness anxiety disorder is a little bit different. I didn't even know about it, so I thought I would share the definition from what I learned in school, but it's defined by persistent concerns about having or acquiring a serious illness without the presence of strong somatic symptoms. And I had a little bit of this when I was a child, but it got much worse. Because of the way my grandmother passed away and because I was there, the cancer had spread to her lungs and she would have attacks where she couldn't breathe. Or the last night I had to help put medication in her mouth because she was gargling on her own fluids. So I started having anxiety related to not being able to breathe because I was so afraid of not being able to breathe as I'd witnessed her not be able to breathe. It really terrified me. And so I would get a minor symptom or illness, or I would just think maybe I ate something that was bad or drank something that was bad, and I'd start to have anxiety about getting sick and then being sick and not being able to breathe, and it's illogical, but what's important to remember when you have a friend or family member that's suffering with anxiety is that it's not illogical to them. To them, it is real, and they need that validation that what they're feeling is important and it matters, and then work them through those feelings using logic and just help talk them down, but never invalidate their feelings, because what they're feeling is real to them. So I went through a few months where my anxiety was so bad I would have attacks at least 4 times a day, and my boyfriend, who is my current boyfriend as well, was very supportive and understanding, and he was really my support system through that time because I didn't really have anyone else, and it would have been, I can't imagine if I wouldn't have had him. So those were kind of my symptoms, but basically feeling like I couldn't breathe, my chest would get very tight, I'd start having a panic attack, and it's going to be different for everyone what the trigger is, but it does lead to, and sometimes people can have panic attacks out of nowhere, they can have anxiety attacks beforehand, they can be intermixed. There's a little bit of a difference between the two, but I did have both. So the things I tried, like I said, I went to therapy, I tried CBD, I did different herbal formulas because I am very big into natural health. I really do not like to go the pharmaceutical path, but that's just my own personal opinion for myself, not for everyone else. And I tried different dietary supplements. I took yoga and did some breath work, and I did a lot of research. I wanted to find ways to talk myself down when I got into that mode of thinking and feeling. So what worked for me was, I'll go through the list here, Chasteberry. What I didn't know before taking some classes in school was that for almost every anxiety disorder, aside from social anxiety disorder, women are in a 2-to-1 ratio more likely to suffer from those. And there isn't a definitive reason why, but one of the hypothesized reasons is the difference in hormones. So I thought, well, I know my hormones aren't balanced because I also have endometriosis. So I researched and I decided Chasteberry was right for me, and I began taking it. And I did notice a difference in just my overall balance mentally, but also like my periods got better. I wasn't keeling over during that week of the month. It made a really big difference for me. It's right here. I also took a Chinese medicine formula. Chinese medicine has worked so well for me in the past for other things I've had trouble with. I have irritable bowel syndrome, and Chinese medicine, I found a very good practitioner who literally saved my life with irritable bowel syndrome. But I actually found a formula, and it's called Acorus tablets. I got it through 7 Forest. You do need it. It does have to be prescribed by a Chinese medicine practitioner. but I took that for a while and I did notice a difference. I didn't take it long. I took it maybe for a month, but that was really all I needed. And it worked very well. I noticed a difference in my anxiety levels. It worked much better for me than CBD did. But everyone is different, and if that's something that interests you, I highly recommend finding a practitioner in your area who also practices herbal medicine as well. Yoga breath work worked really, really well for me. My teacher taught me about diaphragmatic breathing, and I'm going to put a link below to more about that because I'm terrible at explaining things. But basically, when you're anxious or having a panic attack, or even in general, people breathe with their chest, and it can cause that tightness and feeling like you can't breathe. So she taught me about the diaphragmatic breathing, which is basically you're breathing through your diaphragm. It's like into your abdomen. And when I'd be in a panic attack, like I'd do that and I feel like I could breathe again. Like I'd be panicking, I couldn't breathe, and then I'd do that breathing, I'd lay down, I'd do that breathing, and it would really help. Like it made such a difference for me. So I'm going to link that below, and I also suggest looking up a video for it just to see it demonstrated because it really made a difference for me. And the last one, which I believe is super important, is having a support system. And I know this is hard for different people because not everyone has a support system. For me, I really didn't have any family to go to about this. And so for me, my support system was my boyfriend and my therapist. Therapy can be a great option for some people. For me, the biggest one was my boyfriend. He was really there for me. He never made me feel like I was crazy or that or invalidated what I was feeling, and he'd help me talk down what I was going through. Like he'd help me talk it down, which made such a difference for me. I went to the ER numerous times during that period because I felt like I was suffocating even though I was just having anxiety and a panic attack. It was so real. At one point, like I couldn't move my limbs because I was in the panic attack to that extent, or I couldn't move. And he was just there for me no matter what, and he didn't judge me. And I consider myself very lucky to have someone like that. But if you have anyone that you're close to or that will just listen to you, you can even tell them, listen, this is real to me. I know it sounds illogical. I realize that these things aren't actually happening, but they are so real to me, and I just need you to be there and listen and help me talk this down. I don't want to be invalidated. I want my feelings to be validated, but I just need someone to listen. And if you can find someone that will do that for you, it really, really makes a difference. So that is my video on how I manage my severe anxiety. If you have any questions, please ask them below. I didn't go into super great detail because I didn't want to be too boring. I wanted it to be a reasonable amount of time for a video, but I'll answer any questions you have below. I will link those things below as well, and maybe we can have a discussion below about people's experiences and what worked for them. And again, I just wanted to reiterate, just because for me I didn't seek medication, it doesn't mean that for other people it doesn't work for them. That's why it is important to have a therapist and a doctor you can go to and just tell them, and ultimately you make your own decision for yourself, but it is good to be aware of the different options. So again, my experience doesn't have to be yours, okay? I just want to make that clear as well. So thank you so much for listening. I hope this was helpful, and I guess let me know what other topics you might want to hear about, and I'd be happy to talk about them. So thank you so much, and see you next time.